So just a quick recap on this issue of marriage. I want to do some dot connections. We've looked at a lot, and I just want to bring it back around in the fullness of this scope. Our text clearly commands that we as believers are to, as wives, lovingly submit and respect your husbands. And we as believing husbands are to lovingly cherish and lead our wives. Our text also gives us a clue as to God's intent in this, as it points back to God's original design and intention in marriage, which is completeness, partnership, and oneness. But we recognize in chapter 3 of Genesis, sin and the curse, and certainly in our own lives we recognize this. But sin and the curse is entered in, separating us from God and His good design of Genesis chapter 2. But we are promised that we who are the redeemed have victory over sin and the curse, but we must exercise this victory. How do we exercise and experience this victory? By submitting ourselves to God in obedience to His commands. Therefore, how do we experience victory over our flesh and over sin in our marriages? By obeying God's commands regarding marriages. Where are those commands, you say? In Ephesians 5, verses 22 to 33. Wives, lovingly submit and respect your husbands, and husbands, lovingly cherish and lead your wives. These difficult for the flesh commands are not burdensome because they open our marriages up to the experience of God's intended design, which is good and beautiful, of completeness, partnership, and oneness. Brothers and sisters, when someone looks with disdain upon God's commands, I can say with all clarity they are not understanding them. So many times it seems that when it comes to in Christian marriage counseling, husbands and wives will come in and their view of Ephesians 5, submission and leadership, looks something like this. They think that God has given them these commands that are going to drag them back and forth where they don't want to go. That because the wife won't submit, the husband's being drugged behind her, and because the wife is now forced to submit, she's being drugged where she shouldn't go. That is an absolutely false and wrong view. Can I say to you with clarity tonight that God's design, according to God's commands, is that through submission, respect, love, and leadership, that it's not this back and forth, but it is through those things. Their intended outcome is oneness, partnership, and completeness. God's design, His commands are not burdensome. They are beautiful. They are good when rightly seen. Please understand this truth tonight for God's design. It is not ugly. He did not give it to keep women in their place of less than, but to elevate them to their place of honor and purpose in His design and creation. He did not give it to make men separate themselves from their wives and go do their own things, but rather that they might be joined with them. Obedience to God's commands brings oneness, completion, and partnership. How good is that?